G'day, how you going? My name's Matt, and if you've been here before, you know that I like to make stuff. Anyway, welcome to this episode of Where Did My Fingers Go? And Why is my hair on fire? The subtle implication being that we're going to have a bit of a look at workshop and shed safety, just because there's been a few things come up in the past week or weeks in my Instagram and YouTube sort of feed, I suppose, where some safety components or aspects of the workshop space have been, I'm not going to say neglected, but perhaps forgotten, or maybe people aren't aware of. The reality is, most of us are aware that we have sharp, spinny things here, and we probably shouldn't stick our fingers or our other bits in that. We've learnt that from basic good management, or maybe a lesson shrouded in a dumb moment. Most of us are going to have some version of goggles or safety glasses. My preference is these things here. They look a little bit funny. Earmuffs they're called, straight on like that. You don't have the arm of the glasses digging in because the earmuffs are pushing on you. You can fold them up and keep the earmuffs on if you need to see. They're great for mowing because you can chuck a big hat on and not get sunburnt. Winner there. We may even have a mask like this. They're not as much fun as they look, but this protects the insides of us. These are a good thing to have. We've probably got those. Most of us are aware that anything can be a smoke machine if we run it wrong enough. Anyway, today I want to look at some stuff that perhaps we've overlooked at any rate. The first one of those things will be our oil-based finishes. Now, there's been a couple instances, most of them are overseas, to be honest. I haven't really, there's probably one here in Australia, but a couple instances where people have got their rags from their linseed oil-based stuff, tossed it in the bin, not really given any thought, and the stuff spontaneously combusted. And as far as I know, no one really got hurt, but the shed did, and the timber kind of, well, that stuff's flammable, so it burned up. So what we're going to do is, from a safety point of view, we're going to get ourselves a metal bin and chuck our rags in there. Keep them separate from other things like sawdust, offcuts, other rags, all of your other workshop shite. That goes in a separate bin, and then your oil-based waste rags in a metal bin. Insurance companies love that. They'll ask you if you've got a business and you're doing woodwork, they'll want to know about that as a thing you do. It's suggested you soak them in water. Most of these things, particularly like Rubio's linseed oil based, there's instructions on the back on how you're supposed to dispose of the things you've used to apply it. Follow that stuff. There's also some great videos here on YouTube detailing what happens when linseed oil based products do that thing where they spontaneously combust and shit catches fire. I'm kind of lucky. For me, my shed's made of metal and concrete. It's not part of my house. The risk for me with a bit of management's pretty low, but if you're working in your garage and your house has got a timber frame and you're not doing stuff like this, you're putting yourself in a place where the potential risk's a little bit higher. The other thing I want to look at that sometimes people don't really think about is batteries. We've got them on our tools. These are lithium ion, lithium. That's I guess the component we're going to be worried about. We recharge them, we finish our day, we chuck them in our charging station, or we put them on, we turn off the lights and we fuck off. And then we come back and everything's a little bit warm, maybe, or we're not quite sure. A few weeks ago, I heard a story of a guy who left his charging station all going, burnt the shed down. Now, do we want that to happen? No. Does it happen often? Probably not. But ultimately, it's pretty straightforward. Take your batteries out of the chargers, turn them off at the wall when you leave the shed. I have my charging station next to the power point for the lights and the power board for the shed, and that means that I'm reminded when I go and turn all the lights off turn all the charging stations off, and we are pretty good. Turn my compressor off as well. That thing doesn't need to cycle. It leaks, you know. The noise is not so bad, but certainly it doesn't need to run all the time. Right, so this is my charging station. I've got a couple mounted on the wall. You can see the power board there to the left. And then we come down here and you can see batteries are out. Pretty basic stuff, not really difficult. I don't trust the computers that run the batteries and the chargers enough to just leave them on, particularly when my shed's often, you know, not used for 2 or 3 days at a time. The other thing is the tinier, not rechargeable lithium batteries. Now, the only thing in my shed that uses them is this thing. It's an automatic welding helmet. You know, I put a battery in it. It sits there. The battery gets depleted whether I use it or not, to be honest. But those little things are pretty terrible. And if you've ever gone to buy them recently, you will notice they're pretty hard to come by, or harder than they used to be. And the packaging is really difficult to get into. And there's a reason for that, particularly here in Australia. Some legislation has been brought in to, I guess, manage how they're sold and manage how consumers of them are educated. And in order to do that, some particular controls and measures were put in. What I want to do today is briefly show you what happens, or the reason why that government intervention was brought in, because they're pretty terrible little things and they can mess up your day real fast. Under my bucket here, we've got a little experiment. Now, I'm going to bring the camera over in a second, show you, and also I've got some still shots from time points along the way, and that will be a bit of an eye-opener for you. Right, so I thought I'd have an hour and a half to 2 hours before I got a result here. That timer was set the minute I pushed the batteries into the sausage. The O means old, the N means new. The separate one sitting in the water is also old. Old means depleted or used, no longer fit for purpose. Now, what we can have a look here is if we zoom in here, you can see that after 45 minutes in the water, that battery's fizzing and having a significant chemical reaction. Remember, the inside of a human body is pretty wet. If we then come over here and have a look at this old one here, sitting in the sausage, you can see just a little bit of chemical reaction around the corners and the seam, not so much. Come over here to the new one, you can hear the garbage truck in the background, he's a bit late today. That there, right, that's a chemical reaction, that's burning. Pretty sure we don't want that. So there we go, 45 minutes. That's pretty scary. I'm going to drop some stills after this, just so you can see what it was at 15 and 20 minutes. Bit of an eye-opener. Now, as you can see, that's not a very fun thing to have happen inside you. As I said, the only thing that I have that uses a lithium button battery is my welding helmet. But you can get AAA and AA batteries with the same compound, and when they're depleted, if they get a little bit wet, it's a messy thing. There was a recently, maybe 18 months ago, there was a fire in Canberra, and it is believed it was started because lithium batteries hadn't been disposed of properly, and the results were a whole recycling facility completely destroyed. So it's important we dispose of them properly. It's important that we take a little bit of care in the shed, guys. The reality here is it doesn't take much. You know, store our things properly. Have a shelf or a metal cabinet for your chemicals and your aerosols and your flammable shit. Dispose of stuff properly. Take your batteries to a recycling place. Put your rags in a metal bin. Be thoughtful about where your epoxy and timber dust goes. Don't stick your bits in sharp, spinny things. Probably don't use the chainsaw after half a dozen beers. Yeah, a little bit of care, everything's sweet. You know, I want you all to keep your fingers. I want you all to be here next week to watch my next video. Anyway, thank you for watching. Do chuck me a like and a subscribe if you're inclined to do that. But more importantly, if you've got a mate who's a bit dumb in the shed when it comes to safety, send this to him, tell him to have a look. Maybe you'll just save a pile of timber or someone's life. Meantime, have a lovely day, and we'll see you next time.